Hey guys, so today I'm making a grapefruit IPA. I've had this recipe knocking around the brewery for, I think this was actually one of the first recipes I ever made. I think I've been making it for like 3 years now. It's awesome, and honestly the only reason I'm brewing it today is because I got a ton of grapefruits from my friend's tree, and this is honestly made best with super fresh grapefruits. Way better if you get them from your friend rather than buying them from the grocery store. Something about them being at the grocery store makes them not as sweet, and it just doesn't work as well. So if you've got a friend or a grapefruit tree in your backyard, definitely make this. And I mean, you can still get a good beer using grapefruit from your grocery store, but you know, it's just not the same. All right, so I'm going to use 7 gallons of my tap water with some Camden tablets in it, run through a pure filter, and just get this guy going. For water additions today, we're doing 1.1 grams of calcium chloride, 2.2 grams of Epsom salt, and 2.6 grams of gypsum. This is to get us to the hoppy light profile in Brewfather. This beer is basically like a grapefruit bomb. It is awesome. It's one of my favorites. It's just super juicy and fruity and perfect for summer. It ends up being around 7% or so with all the grapefruit additions. So let's get to brewing. All right, so I'm just gonna throw my 7 gallons of water into my Clawhammer and throw on the insulation and set everything up. All right, so now that I got my water in, I'm gonna throw my screen in just so I don't forget to put it in, because I've done that before and it's a nightmare. So I'm going to turn my heat on while I'm setting this up, and I'm setting it to 157, which is what I usually use for my strike water. All right, so now let's do our water additions. So 1.1 grams of calcium chloride, 2.2 grams of Epsom salt, and 2.6 grams of gypsum. All right, so I'm gonna just toss this in here. And start my pump so that we can get a consistent temperature reading. Okay, so for malt in this one, this is like definitely one of my old school recipes. You can tell because of the amount of caramel malt in it. I used to be obsessed with caramel malt for some reason, and I've kind of strayed away from that now, but it works really well in this beer and gives it a nice, it's kind of like a carrot orange color, which it's kind of reminiscent of like a pink grapefruit skin, so I like it. Okay, so we're doing 10 pounds of two-row, 1 pound of Munich, 8 ounces of caramel 60, and 8 ounces of white wheat. Okay, so let's just go down the list, I guess. This is two-row. What was I using to scoop this last time? Oh. All right, so now Munich, 1 pound. I haven't had Munich in stock in so long. 8 ounces of caramel 60. And 8 ounces of white wheat. So the spacing on the mill looks fine. So the spacing I use typically is less than a credit card width. Because I'm doing brew in a bag, you can get real fine because you don't have to lauter and make the whole filter bed thing. So the finer it is, the higher efficiency you get. So always trying to save some money. All right. And I always test it before I dump my whole pail of grain in because I've definitely had to dump it out before. What the fuck? God damn it. And that's what happens when you blow your breaker. I'll go reset it.
Thank you.
All right, let's finish milling. Okay, now that that's all milled, I'm going to start juicing and zesting all of the grapefruits in the world. So the grapefruits we're using today, we're actually going to put in the, not so much the dry hop phase, but we're going to put it in after the beer is cooled. We want a really fresh grapefruit flavor. So I didn't want to put any heat to it. And the way I try to prevent any infections is by treating citrus fruits. I do this with all the citrus I use pretty much. I do it very specifically. So first I just give them a rinse. These are from a backyard, so they have just crud on them. So I just rinse them with water, and then this is a bucket of Star San. I soak the grapefruits in Star San before I do anything else with them. So, there's a lot of wild yeast and stuff on grapefruit skins, so I like to make sure I can kill most things that's on it so it doesn't interfere with the beer. And, beer's pretty acidic as it is, and the grapefruit juice is also acidic, so it's unlikely that we're going to get a ton of infection before the yeast can actually take over. But I'm trying to play it on the safe side because, this is a lot of money in grapefruits if you actually buy them, and you don't want to waste that. Fruited beers are always generally more expensive to make, so treat your fruit right and you should be fine. So I'm just going to dump all these in there. This is only one of 2 bags, but we're not going to use all these. This is just what I was gifted. All right. So I'm just usually let it sit in there for 10 minutes just to make sure. And I've never had a problem with putting Star San on grapefruit ever. It always seems to work out just fine. And I've never had an infection with this beer, so we're doing something right. Just gonna wipe these off as I go and zest the hell out of them. So for this recipe, we're gonna use, how much are we gonna? We're gonna use 5 ounces of zest and 30 ounces of grapefruit juice. And I'm probably gonna go over, but I just throw it in my freezer and use it for the next batch. It actually keeps pretty well and doesn't really affect the flavor if you freeze it. I don't know why these grapefruits are so much better than any other I've ever had. Thank you, Stephanie. You are amazing. So this usually takes 10 large grapefruit to get to about 5 ounces and then the 30 ounces. I have way more than that today. Okay, so I'm gonna just start juicing these. I've got a quart mason jar. This is about 2 ounces over the amount we need. So once we get close to the top, we can see if we want to keep going. Okay, so obviously we have a lot more grapefruit than we actually need, so we're just going to use one of these. I'm either going to freeze the other or give it to one of my neighbors. And I'm going to just weigh out this zest. The zest I will freeze and use for the next batch I make of this. The grapefruit juice, like I don't mind juicing grapefruits as much as I mind zesting. I hate zesting. So let's just put it 2 ounces. It's tared, and we're just going to measure out 5 ounces. Okay, so this is about 5 ounces. That's a lot of grapefruit zest. This beer basically just tastes like a grapefruit, so the zest is like what's actually doing that. It's super important to use a ton of it, and don't use the peel. I've used the peel before. You don't get the same carryover. If you want to peel the grapefruit, you need to do 2 things. You need to peel it between the white layer and the orange or pink or whatever layer. So you don't want any of the pith. That will make it bitter. But I've also thought about like doing that peel, so a very thin peel, and then either blending or like chopping it up. You need a lot of surface area for the zest, and that's just why it works. So that was only half of my grapefruits that I have, so I'm going to keep going, but you guys don't need to see that. And when I put my zest in the fermenter, I'm going to bag it. This is just for the time being. Okay, so we are at 157, our strike water temperature. All right, so I'm gonna just reattach this, turn my pump back on, and turn my heat down to 152. And set a timer for 60 minutes. So our mash is done. I'm going to go ahead and just start heating it up so that we can get to the boil a little quicker. And I'm going to take a pH reading just to see what we hit. That wort is gorgeous. I'm going to throw this in my kegerator to cool down while we pull the grain out. So pH was 5.2, so that's good. And we can take our pre-boil gravity reading now. I usually stir what's in there up and do it, but we can just do it from this. Might be a little off because it's not all mixed together. So we were going for a pre-boil of 1.058. So we're at 14.1 bricks. Let's just see what that means. So our pre-boil is 1.059, so we basically hit it perfectly. We're 0.001 off, which is fine by me. Okay, so I'm gonna plug that into my brew father. We're gonna let this heat up, and I'm gonna start doing my hop measuring. So once this settles a bit, we can get our boil volume. Okay, so our hop additions, we're doing 1/2 ounce of Galaxy at 60, 1 ounce of Citra at 10, and 1 ounce of Columbus at 10. And then we have a hop stand at 194 degrees of 1 ounce of Cashmere. And then our dry hop is 1 ounce of Cascade and 1 ounce of Citra. There's a lot of hops going in and a lot of different stuff. So I'm going to get my Galaxy Citra, Columbus, and Cashmere out. This is like all the C's. So, have you guys seen these cans of hops? I'm obsessed with these. Galaxy. My Galaxy is 13.4%, but I'm not going to adjust it. What I have on the recipe is 16%. I'll just update it for you guys to see. Okay, so half an ounce of Galaxy. And now I'm going to do my 1 ounce of Citra and 1 ounce of Columbus. And my 1 ounce of Cashmere. All right, so now we just gotta wait for it to get up to a boil. So we're now boiling. So I'm gonna add my half an ounce of Galaxy, and I'm going to use my screen. All right, so I'm gonna set a timer for 50 minutes and come back to do my Citra and Columbus, as well as a Werfelock tablet and some yeast nutrient. I've got a starter going with California ale yeast, but I'm gonna give it a little extra nutrients. All right, so we are at our 10-minute addition. So I'm putting in the 1 ounce of Citra and 1 ounce of Columbus and a Werfelock tablet and some yeast nutrient. I'm gonna toss the Werfelock tablet in the middle. Alrighty, so I'm setting a timer for 10 minutes and then we can start chilling. I'm gonna set up my chiller now. Okay, so our boil is now done and we're gonna just try to get this down to 194 so that we can do our hop stand and then chill it all the way down. So I'm going to throw some chilled water in here. I don't know how cold it is because I put it in pretty late. And the first runnings of this I'm gonna put into a smaller bucket because it's gonna be super hot coming out and I'm just gonna monitor that. So we gotta open our water. I definitely need to connect my wort to my wort in here. Whoop. Better. Ready. So we've got our water connected. So I'm gonna turn on my wort pump. So sometimes this will actually get it down to 194. So I'm gonna let that run for a little bit. Just start the cooling process so I don't waste all my cold water. So this looks like it's gonna get down to 194 without any assistance. I'm gonna give it a touch of cold water just to speed up the process. So it's just enough to put water into the bucket, and it is hot. All right, so we're at 194, so I'm gonna stop my pump and throw in my 1 ounce of Cashmere. I'm gonna let this sit for, I don't remember how long. I'm gonna let it sit for 10 minutes. So I'm gonna set my timer and just kind of mush this around. So it's been 10 minutes. That actually got us down to 169. So I'm just gonna plug this in, get all the hot water out of here, and then switch it over to recirculate. So this water is about 40 degrees. It's looking, nah, like 50 degrees. And it's gonna rise quickly. so quickly that I'm gonna go buy some ice because I've got to buy apricots for my Berliner Weiss anyway. Okay, so this got down to 85 degrees. I'm gonna just stick it in my catalyst to chill down with the glycol. You know, it is about 85 degrees in this room as it is, so it's a little hard to get it down further, even with a bag of ice. So this has already been sanitized. I'm just giving it a little bit more. And I'm going to sanitize this mason jar. And attach it to the bottom. And dump the sanitizer into my jerk tray. Alrighty. Okay, so now I'm gonna, you know, just transfer. Obviously. So as I'm doing this, I'm also going to completely lose my sanitizer. Oh, there it is. I'm gonna sanitize a hop bag to throw my zest in. And I'm just gonna toss this in there. We don't have to worry about oxidation because it's not fermenting yet. And I'm also going to toss in my grapefruit juice, and then I'm gonna take my original gravity reading because this will throw it off a bit. All right, that is a full beer. All right, so I'm going to take my gravity reading. Just let that sit. I'm gonna pitch my yeast. Don't mind the color. This is from a black IPA I made. This is just a California ale from White Labs that will barely fit in here. All right, I'm gonna seal this up. I'm gonna actually ferment this pretty at like, I don't know, like 62 degrees. I don't want a very active fermentation because of how full it is. So we got 5 3/4 gallons, which makes sense because we basically added half a gallon of grapefruit juice to it. Ooh. Oh, and I need to let the wort into my mason jar, so that'll decrease the volume a bit. All right, so we're at about 5.5 gallons. Okay, so I'm gonna set my stasis to 65 degrees and ferment it there. That's a pretty good ale temp. Gonna throw my thermowell probe in here. Alrighty. Okay, so let's see. Our original gravity. So we're sitting at 14.4 bricks. We might be a little low, but I'm okay with it. So we're at 1.061. We were going for 1.064. That's fine. I mean, we'll still get like a 6.5% beer, I think. I'll tell you guys in a sec. So we're still gonna get a 6.3% beer. So our mash efficiency and brew house efficiency is actually higher than what we had anticipated, so that's good. All right, we did everything right. We just had more volume because we didn't boil off as much. So I'll see you guys here for the dry hop as soon as the Krausen's pretty much gone. So I'm probably gonna be like 4 or 5 days in, and then we're gonna let it sit for, I'm probably gonna only let it sit for like 3 days, only because of my brew schedule. But it'll be good that way. Okay, so I'm gonna dry hop this Grapefruit IPA now. I have 1 ounce of Citra and 1 ounce of Cascade in this sanitized hop bag, and I'm just gonna toss it right in. All right, so in 1 week we can transfer this and have a lovely grapefruit IPA to drink in this summer heat. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe. Oh my god, I didn't have a fucking SIM card in.
What?
I took out my SIM card. Fortunately, I had it all on the other camera. Whoopsie daisy. I fucked up.
You didn't record?
I recorded on the GoPro.
I have your other memory card in my...
I like this angle better because if I fuck up, then it's...